welcome to Dawn News English. For 20 minutes, I'm Nadia Nadi with you. Today, we're going to analyze what is going to happen. What options does the government have now not to obey the Supreme Court's ruling? We know that Shehbaz Sharif's cabinet has rejected the Supreme Court's decision regarding the delay of elections by the ECP, has also said that the elections of Punjab to take place on the 14th of May, given a lot of deadlines. At the same time, today we saw that in the National Assembly, on the floor of the House, there was a resolution that has been passed. It was moved by a Balochistan Awami Party legislator Khalid Naqi, who read the resolution as follows. This House rejects the minority decision of the three-member bench and binds the Prime Minister and the Cabinet not to implement the unconstitutional and unlawful decision. We have with us Raza Rumi, a senior journalist, founder of Naya Daur digital platform, and we're going to ask him, what do you think, Raza? Do we see another Prime Minister going home in contempt of the court?
Nadia, thank you so much for having me back. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. So I think things are moving towards that. We have seen earlier the former Prime Minister Gilani, who was the PPP Prime Minister, was or had to leave his office because of the contempt proceedings. So this particular instance would also merit a contempt case. But here things are a little different because the resolution has come from a parliament. So the question now would be whether the Supreme Court's three-member bench holds the entire parliament under the contempt law, or it selects the Prime Minister alone. Because if it does the latter, it would be a political win for Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, whose political fortunes are dwindling, and faced with high inflation, Imran Khan's aggressive political tactics, Shehbaz Sharif might actually benefit from this because as they say, political martyrdom gets you votes. Now, the thing is that whether it comes to this pass, remains to be seen. We have to wait until what happens tomorrow, because there's a National Security Committee meeting scheduled for Friday, and let's see what they say, because the government, if it is backed by the military establishment, the judiciary would sort of think a few times before starting off on the contempt proceedings.
Well, I don't see the judiciary actually thinking in all this while. And, despite the fact that all the political parties in power in the coalition government had demanded a full court, they did not abide by that. Neither did they even pay heed to that kind of request. So is this actually, when you step back and when you see what is exactly happening on the political landscape in Pakistan, is this a head-on collision between the government and the judiciary, or the establishment and the judiciary, or the establishment combined government with the judiciary? It's very difficult now to understand, because you have this establishment as a neutral element in this entire scenario. I don't know how much neutral they are, but definitely there's some power that the government is withdrawing from. It just cannot be the parliament. That's at least my analysis.
Yeah, Nadia, you've laid it out really well. I think the crisis is unprecedented. We have been here before in the 1950s when the first martial law was imposed. At that time you had this political conflict as well, and conflict within the establishment. The then establishment was dominated by civilian bureaucrats personified by Sikandar Mirza. And then we saw this situation in 1977 when there was a breakdown between Mr. Bhutto and his opposition then, and the military stepped in and imposed martial law for 11 years. And then in the 1990s, we had frequent collision courses where the president, generally backed by the military, was pitted against the prime ministers, and each time, 4 times, the assemblies were dissolved, or the 4th time there was a coup by General Musharraf. So so all these fears now being talked about are not unfounded; they are rooted in our history. This kind of collision, this kind of multiple front conflicts lead to a systemic breakdown, a systemic clash. And this is what I personally fear, that if this is not arrested, I mean, there still is time. I'm not saying there'll be martial law or emergency, but if it does not get sorted out, then this would logically culminate in a breakdown of the current system as it is, and a new thing, a new shape will emerge. But before I go there, I would just like to elaborate on the various conflicts that you've said. You know, in my view, the conflict is actually fourfold. The first is the conflict between the Supreme Court of Pakistan and the Parliament, because it is the Parliament that has now passed a resolution. It is the Parliament that has clipped the wings or has tried to clip the powers of the Chief Justice, which has administrative powers through Supreme Court rules. The second level, of course, is the tension between the current establishment and Prime Minister Imran Khan, because Mr. Imran Khan and his supporters have targeted the incumbent army chief. You know, they were doing this to General Bajwa all the time. You know, Bajwa has done this. Every fault is Bajwa's fault. Bajwa did not let me work. Bajwa X, Y, Z. But, you know, Mr. Khan's followers have started targeting the current army chief as well. If you know that there's, vloggers and bloggers and social media users, you know, they've been circulating all these, you know, they're saying, they're alleging very serious accusations that the incumbent military and intelligence leadership wants to eliminate Mr. Khan. Now it is very serious, because if it is there, we must condemn it and we must stop it. But it cannot go forward until you file a proper legal application or ask the Supreme Court to take cognizance, you know. So that's the second. The third one is, of course, Mr. Imran Khan and his traditional political rivals, the PDM and PPP, where and you know, Mr. Khan has made them all join hands. They hate each other, the PPP and the PMLN and the PDM parties, but because of Khan, they've all joined hands to fight him. You know, just like the way in America, when Biden was contesting elections, all the groups sided with him to defeat Trump. And the fourth is the internal conflicts, which some are apparent within the permanent institutions. So the Supreme Court of Pakistan, we already know, is in a state of civil war. Today's Dawn editorial uses these words, so I suppose I can safely cite that. So it's not just a conflict. It's not a difference of opinion. Nadia, you and I can disagree, and we do often. But civil war is when you pass verdicts, when you issue orders, when you undermine each other. The way Justice Qazi Faiz Isa passed a judgment, and then that was overruled by a 6-member bench within 5-10 minutes, you know, and then all these circulars were issued, etc., etc. Everybody knows that. I don't want to repeat that. And then there's the other invisible tension or alleged conflict within the military establishment. Now, what is that? I frankly do not know, but we do know that the retired senior military generals and retired officers are very vocal both in favor of Imran Khan against the incumbent army chief and the former army chief, whom they accuse of firing Imran Khan from his PM's office. Now, rank and file is also representative. You know, they are like, you know the community clubs you have in Clifton, Defence, Lahore, DHA, Gymkhana Club. They are also representatives of these clubs because they interact socially. They are married to each other. Their families are married to they meet at their lovely clubs in DHAs and have dinners and parties and tea. Aajkal to iftar ho rahi hogi. So, you know, they all talk. And what they talk is, so obviously, which means that why are some of these retired personnel so gung-ho? You know, usually they would protect their army chief, whoever it is, X, Y, Z. Musharraf ko, you know, they supported. Ziaul Haq, they supported. Ayub Khan, Yahya Khan, who broke the country in 2 parts, was given a free pass. But this time, Mr. Imran Khan's populism and his, charisma and his image of a messiah has seeped deep into these institutions. Now, these
Okay.
are the four levels of conflict. So it is a very unusual, extraordinary situation in Pakistan's history that can go anywhere. That's
Okay. So when you say it can go anywhere, and you really explained it very, very well, that what exactly is happening in all the institutions as well as on the political landscape. But we also have a political history where we have international players somehow, I wouldn't say meddling in the domestic politics, but, trying to facilitate, to help probably ease off all the tensions. In this scenario that we are in right now, do you see any role of international players, and do you actually have see of any importance the visit that Nawaz Sharif and Shehbaz Sharif has been invited to Saudi Arabia along with Maryam Nawaz? Are you attaching some kind of importance to that, or do you feel that international players wouldn't have anything to do within the domestic politics of Pakistan, and they're not even ready to facilitate?
No, let's be very clear. International players have a role, Nadia, and that is because Pakistan is an aid-dependent country. We need the dollars from Saudi Arabia, US, IMF, China, Qatar, UAE to survive. Day to day, Pakistan is like a bankrupt household, which goes to the general store and buys groceries on credit, and that credit they all the time need. So we have given them that power,
Okay.
but we must not overstate their role as well. Like Mr. Khan said that America has ousted me. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto said that the American conspiracy led to his murder. For a long time, the PPP cadres believed that America was involved in his judicial murder, but actually was the entire Supreme Court, the military junta, the right wing in Pakistan, all paid by America? No. There are domestic factors as well, which are at play. Now, what is the international context here? There are two important contexts here. One, of course, is the Western camp. The Western camp, led by the US and Saudi Arabia being its face in the Middle East and in our region and in our country, and in that orbit you have UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, etc.
Exactly.
And then the second pole is China. Now, what we know why the military establishment is so, concerned about Mr. Imran Khan's return to power is not so much that they think that Imran Khan is incompetent or is not going to handle things properly. No, because Imran Khan was incompetent. His team was incompetent. But come on, the present lot is not as competent. They are equal failures. Look at what the current finance minister has done, and look at what the PDM has actually killed its own prospects by really faulty and flawed and delayed policies to fulfill the IMF program. And even now we don't have, despite a 35% inflation, 40-50% food inflation, we don't have an IMF program. We are broke.
Exactly.
But their concern, the military's concern, is that they have to work with China, with Saudi Arabia, with US. They cannot let go of these allies because Pakistan would be on the verge of bankruptcy and things would not go on. And what we have understood, what we have heard so far, that all these players are averse to Mr. Khan's populist politics and his style of governance, where he sort of riles up public opinion against these countries. So, for example, if you remember when Mr. Khan took power in 2018, the first few statements by his commerce minister, his communications ministers were about how CPEC was, corruption was a den of corruption, and Shehbaz Sharif and Chinese firms were making money. The Chinese got really angry. General Bajwa had to fly himself to salvage the relationship. Then with the Saudis, with the Saudis, he said he is going to set up an alternative because he was so inspired by Artul, the soap, the fictitious soap opera. Because Artul's reality is very well known. There's hardly any material on him, but it's a mythical thing, promoted by Erdogan in Turkey, and Imran Khan is, and every Pakistani politician wants to be Erdogan because, like powerful, tame the military, rule forever, be a successful Khalifa. Erdogan calls himself a caliph. I mean, I'm not joking. There are YouTube videos where he talks about that. So that is very, and if you remember, reportedly MBS offloaded him off from a plane, and then all this watches business, all of that. But these things can be fixed, and that's why Imran Khan has been saying that his people are in contact with MBS and they have backdoor communication. But this current Saudi visit by the Sharif family, who are close allies of the Saudis historically, they had a rupture over the case of Yemen, but in general they have been bailed out by. This is very significant, and maybe we will see what decisions are taken on the 11th or the 12th, because I'm sure somebody from Pakistan, somebody important in the hierarchy of the military leadership or rank and file, will also be there, either on the sidelines or in those meetings. That's what I've been told, but maybe, until it happens, we can't really say for sure. Now, the third one is the US camp, where historic anti-Americanism was once again used. So, all these are from the playbook of Pakistan's deep state. Pakistan's deep state historically riled up Pakistanis against American policies, if you remember, during the so-called war on terror, because, they wanted to keep Taliban intact, and they also wanted US aid and money. So Imran Khan took that from the playbook. He has taken he is copying everything that the deep state has used in the past, calling people traitors. So he called Bajwa traitor. His cronies in the
He is a smart politician as compared to all the others who are ruling right now. I mean, he's just ruled once, and look at the way that he's just moved everything towards himself. Despite not being the prime minister, everything revolves around him.
Yes, that is very true, Nadia, but don't forget that it revolves around him. There's a whole history because you see, as you know, all four ISI chiefs from Hamid Gul to General Faiz Hamid were his backers. General Zahirul Islam, if you remember, this year is last 1 year is no different from 2014, when Imran Khan brought the then PMLN government to a standstill.
Exactly.
That PMLN government was dysfunctional. That was a decade ago. Again, that's a playbook that it is General Zahirul Islam's playbook that Imran Khan is using, and this time General Faiz was serving until November, December. And it is reported that he was also advising him. But Nadia, that is the whole thing. That even today, now he has support from very evidently the Supreme Court judges who have been repeatedly ruling in his favor. Other than the April decision on the vote of no confidence, now all their judgments, this 3-member bench, have, I'm not saying that they have done it deliberately or they are partisans. I don't think so. I think the effect of their judgments has been to bolster Imran Khan's position. Now,
so we have now only 3 minutes left. I just want you to add one thing. What options, if any, are now left for the government to come out of this quagmire, the political quagmire, the chaos that we see? Or was this the last resort they could actually think of? And it's a smart move, the parliament passing a resolution and asking the prime minister not to follow or implement the decision of the Supreme Court given on the 4th of April.
Nadia, I respectfully, I disagree with you. I think it may be a smart move in the short term, but it's setting a very wrong precedent in Pakistan. Tomorrow there'll be another government, a PTI government. They don't like a decision, they'll go to the parliament or senate, and then the judiciary's legitimacy, its power, its role has been undermined greatly, partly by the judges themselves, the Chief Justice, Honorable Chief Justice himself, partly he's responsible to bring it upon himself, but the politicians have also, I think the parliament should not have done this because it's a bad precedent. But the options are, coming back to your question, here are the two options. The first option is if the government thinks it has this backing and support from the military establishment, And if the military establishment is on one page by itself, the junta, then they will go ahead and take the Supreme Court on and capitalize on the divisions within the Supreme Court or the quote-unquote civil war that would lead to some dramatic changes. But I personally think that that kind of power politics is always counterproductive. That is those palace intrigues. What Shehbaz Sharif and the PDM should do is that they should resign. They should call for a general election. They should talk to Imran Khan and agree. You know, Asad Kaisar has already said that we are flexible on the date. They should say after the budget, June is we pass the budget so that the business of the government continues. And in the next 3 months, they should hold an election all over the country. As political forces, they should not be afraid of election. Elections are part of democracy. If they lose today, so what? They'll come back after 5 years if the public supports them. They should not let, because their every move is validating Imran Khan's stance. They are making Imran Khan taller, bigger, to recommend, even bigger than perhaps he actually is on the ground, because he has this seasoned moral, this narrative that he stands for. He stands for Constitution, and the PDM government is violating the Constitution. He stands for human rights. They are violating their human rights. He has taken away every possible narrative in his favor. And the PDM should not let that happen. They should go to the elections, fight it out there.
I think that is the best solution that you have mentioned, that the only option now left is to go for an election, to have a political dialogue, be more receptive because you're the government. Sit down with Imran Khan's team and chalk out a plan, chalk out a date for a general election. Only then we can come out of this mess. Otherwise, Raza, I totally agree with this, that you're setting the wrong precedents. And if you're setting this one, the next government in power can do the same. And this chaotic situation will continue, which is not good for the economy of the country as well. Also for the political landscape, because sometimes you want the military establishment to support you. Sometimes you want the judiciary to support you. And all the organs of the state having their own constitutional parameters. I think every political government just wants everything in their favor, which should not happen. It should always be by the Constitution and according to the Constitution. Thank you so much, Raza, for being with us on our show 20 Minutes. And let's see what is going to happen. But interesting times, and very different times indeed, that we are witnessing. We can only hope that sanity is going to prevail very soon. That's all for now. Goodbye.